He stood to destroy me in front of my family, but I told them to check their inboxes and destroyed him instead. The clink of silverware, the low hum of conversation, my father smiling at the head of the table, surrounded by candles and laughter. If you looked around that room, it seemed like any other family dinner, but I knew better. I knew what was coming, because she planned it all. Not Jenna, not even Andrew, but me, quietly, precisely, like clockwork. And now, the final tick was about to echo through the room. Andrew cleared his throat. Everyone turned. He rose, glass in hand, like some kind of deranged best man about to give a speech at someone else's wedding. "I have something to say," he began. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I'd waited for this exact moment. He smiled, looking straight at my father. "Vivian and I, well, we're not working out. I've found someone else." A pause. Then, "I'm in love with Jenna." Gasps. Forks dropped. My mother covered her mouth. Jenna went pale, then red. She didn't know he'd say it like that. Out loud, public. She cried in silence when she thought no one could hear. But now, her shame had an audience. My heart didn't race. I'd already buried the hurt. What lived in me now was steel, strategy, fire. I took a breath, raised my wineglass, and smiled. "Well," I said, standing. "That was dramatic. But if we're all being honest tonight," I pulled my phone from my clutch, tapped once, and added, "Everyone, check your emails." The table froze. Phones buzzed. I turned to my father. "Yours too, Dad. I wouldn't want you to miss the good part." Within seconds, the first gasp hit the air, then another. Then someone whispered, "Oh my God." Inside those emails, a shared folder, titled 2 Years of Lies, with subfolders labeled hotel receipts, wire transfers, voice memos, screenshots, and the best part, a time-stamped video of Andrew and Jenna mocking me, planning to let her down easy on my dad's birthday, because she'll be too humiliated to fight back. That was his plan, his gamble. He thought I would stay small, quiet, destroyed. Instead, I turned his show into a courtroom. Andrew tried to speak, but my cousin beat him to it. "You were sleeping with her this whole time?" Jenna broke down, crying. Andrew just stood there, speechless, blinking like he didn't understand how it had all spiraled. "You're not the only tech genius in this family," I said calmly, "but I am the only one who can trace deleted texts and encrypted messages." My aunt stood up and threw her napkin on the table. "You're sick." One of my uncles told Andrew to leave before he made it worse. But I wasn't finished. I looked at my father, his face red with disbelief, and said, "I didn't want this moment to come, but you deserve to know the kind of people sitting at this table." Then the truth came out, and no one could pretend anymore. Andrew's voice cracked. "Vivian, we can talk about this." I laughed. "No, Andrew. You talk. I deliver." And that delivery just hit everyone's inbox. My silence was my answer for 2 years. Tonight, my voice became his undoing, and as Jenna sobbed into her hands, and Andrew stood frozen in his self-made mess, I sat back down, lifted my glass again, and waited for dessert. He didn't just cheat on me. He trained me to take him down. I wasn't looking for the truth when I found it. It was a Tuesday. I was updating our shared cloud calendar, checking if he'd blocked off the weekend for my dad's birthday. That's when I saw it. A calendar invite titled, "Sweet Retreat, Just Us." Location, a boutique hotel 45 minutes away. Time, the same weekend he'd told me he had a conference. Something in me stilled. My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't race. It just shifted, like a lock clicking open. I was deceived, and in that moment, I knew it wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I took a screenshot, closed the app, and smiled as he walked into the room with coffee. "Long day ahead?" I asked. He nodded, kissed my forehead. He thought I would stay in the dark, his sweet, loyal wife with no sense for signals or secrets. But that night I didn't cry. She cried in silence once before. That version of me didn't live here anymore. Instead, I made a spreadsheet, hotel names, timestamps, license plate snapshots from parking garages, receipts from restaurants I'd never heard of. I cross-referenced his banking app with photos from Jenna's social feed, matching backgrounds, same cocktails, same lazy smiles. Each post told me more than any confession ever could. My heartbreak became my hard drive, and every beat it skipped was another file saved. I started playing my role even better. Dinner on the table, hugs for my sister, kind smiles at family gatherings. "Vivian's so patient," they'd say, "so steady." What they didn't know was that I'd become a machine of observation. She planned it all, under the guise of clueless affection. I wasn't the audience. I was the author, rewriting the ending one backup at a time. They got cocky, started texting on our couch, whispering in corners. Once, I caught Jenna in my kitchen late at night, phone lit up, eyes glowing. "Just grabbing water," she said. "No problem," I smiled. But that night, I installed a keystroke tracker on Andrew's tablet. What I read over the next few weeks made my hands shake, not from sadness, from power. He broke me first, and now he was handing me every weapon. I'd need to undo him. The messages weren't just romantic, they were cruel. They laughed at me, called me docile, joked about how she's so far behind. She probably thinks TikTok is a clock brand. It stung, but only for a second. Then it hardened, because the woman they mocked, she was watching and documenting, and turning every insult into an exhibit marked Exhibit A, B, and CI, forwarded everything to a secure server. No shared devices. I used burner emails, VPNs, timestamps synced across 3 platforms. Because when you've been underestimated long enough, you learn how to make the underestimation work for you. I didn't want revenge. I wanted precision, evidence, the kind that doesn't get dismissed in court or family dinners. People always say heartbreak changes you. They're right. It sharpens you. It peels away the softness and leaves strategy. And when I looked at the folder labeled Final Strike, I didn't feel like a wife anymore. I felt like a storm waiting for the signal to hit. They built their betrayal on secrets. I turned every secret into a receipt. Cybersecurity doesn't just teach you how to protect data, it teaches you how to expose it. I'd spent a decade securing high-level systems, tracking digital footprints, and studying how people hide what they don't want found. So when my husband and my sister decided to turn deception into a lifestyle, they didn't just cheat on a woman, they declared war on a forensic analyst, and she planned it all like it was just another day in the office. My laptop became my second home. I created encrypted backups, mirror drives, and cloud redundancies with staggered timestamps. I ran image comparisons, IP traces, metadata extraction. Andrew thought he was clever using Telegram and disappearing messages, but I had screen capture, bots running every time his phone lit up near our shared network. He never saw it coming, because he didn't even know where to look. The more I uncovered, the less I reacted. That's what unnerved me most. How quickly pain became process. I wasn't unraveling anymore. I was unraveling them. Every cruel joke, every hotel charge disguised as business, every kiss emoji sent while I was sitting 5 feet away, documented, verified, cataloged. I was nothing to him, but his carelessness made him everything to my case. I reached out to Callie, a divorce attorney with a reputation for turning quiet wives into courtroom titans. I showed her the first 100 pages of evidence. Her jaw tightened. "We're not just getting you divorced," she said. "We're going scorched earth." Then she introduced me to Leon, a private investigator who specialized in digital infidelity. He grinned when I said I worked in cybersecurity. "Finally," he said, "a client who speaks my language." Together, we built a war room. I shared files through encrypted channels. He followed the money. Callie drafted timelines. We mapped everything, every fake conference, every overlapping lie, every shared purchase Jenna tried to hide. There was even a joint investment account they opened without my knowledge. I traced it, flagged it, and froze it before either of them could blink. So I showed him the proof, and this time, it wasn't just emotional, it was legal. We timed everything, the email drop, the family dinner, the legal sequence. I even tested the server load capacity to make sure every recipient got their message in sync. Because when your heart's been broken in silence, there's a quiet joy in knowing your enemies. Downfall will arrive in high definition, in real time, across 10 devices at once. People often say, don't go looking for trouble. But when he broke me first, I didn't go looking. I traced it. I verified it. I built a case that didn't just expose them. It obliterated any version of the story where I was the weak one. And through it all, I kept smiling, kept baking banana bread, kept asking Jenna about her mystery dates, because that's what they expected. That's what made them reckless. They weren't ready for the storm I was building in silence, and soon they'd find out. Silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes my silence was my answer. They rehearsed a scene where I'd fall apart. Instead, I stole the spotlight and rewrote the script. The night of the dinner, I wore emerald green. Jenna always said it was too bold for me. That's exactly why I chose it. I wanted to be the brightest thing in the room before the real fireworks started. I slipped my laptop into my bag beside my lipstick, double-checked the hotspot, and whispered to myself, don't blink. Everything was ready, or so I thought. What I didn't expect was the one thing I couldn't control, the Wi-Fi. As Andrew stood to make his grand speech, his "I'm leaving you for your sister" performance, I pulled out my phone to cue the email drop. Nothing. No signal. I refreshed the app again. Still offline. My heart didn't panic. My brain clicked into gear. I reached under the table, opened my bag, and slid my laptop onto my lap with a grace only betrayal could teach. My fingers moved fast. Hotspot connected. Files queued. Countdown initiated. He had no idea she planned it all, including a backup. Plan for the backup plan. He said the words, every syllable laced with smug liberation. Vivian and I are over. Jenna and I are together now. My mother gasped. Jenna looked like she might pass out. I just tapped send. Check your inbox, I said, louder this time. A beat of silence. Then the pings, one by one, notifications lighting up the room like fireworks. The same people who watched him betray me now watched the truth come out in HD. The emails hit all at once. Screens opened. Fingers scrolled. No one could speak. Photo attachments. Video files. Bank statements. Transcripts of private chats. Jenna, whispering, let's do it at her dad's party. She won't dare lose it in front of him. Andrew's reply? Exactly. She'll stay quiet. She always does. But my silence was my answer, and tonight it exploded across 14 inboxes. Someone's wine glass shattered. My father stood up. Is this a joke? He asked, his voice low and furious. Jenna started crying. Real, shaking sobs. Andrew? He reached for my arm. Vivian, let's talk privately. This isn't the way. I pulled away like his touch burned. You picked this stage. I'm just following your lead. Jenna tried to speak. Vivian, I never wanted... I stopped her with a look. You wanted this. You both did. You just didn't want the consequences. And that was the part they never factored in. That the sweet, quiet wife was also the woman who knew how to expose a system, crack a firewall, and time an emotional detonation down to the second. Andrew's father stood and left. Father stood and his cousin looked physically ill. My brother whispered, holy hell. And I sipped my wine and finally felt full, not with revenge, but with relief, because he thought I would stay quiet, small, stunned, but I was none of those things. I was prepared, I was done, and I was ready for the next chapter. Even when the server glitched, even when the room spun with tension, I never lost focus. That's what strategy does. It keeps you grounded when the world turns upside down. Because the woman he underestimated didn't just survive the betrayal, she turned it into a masterpiece. They thought they could control the story, but once the evidence spoke, no one listened to them anymore. You could hear a pin drop. My father stared at his phone like it was written in another language, but he understood it perfectly. Every photo, every text, every wire transfer, they weren't just receipts, they were betrayals carved into pixels. My sister collapsed into her chair, sobbing, not because she felt guilty, but because the truth came out and she couldn't spin it. Her performance ended the moment the room turned on her. Andrew's face changed in real time, from confident to confused, from confused to exposed. This isn't the full picture, he stammered. There's more to the story. I looked at him and said calmly, there is no story, Andrew, just documentation. You handed me the plot, and I finished the chapter. He never saw it coming, because in his world, women like me just break quietly. He didn't know some of us break the entire system. He tried to turn the crowd. Vivian's not innocent either, he said. My father shut him down before he could finish. Don't. Just don't. That silence afterward, it was deafening. Years of loyalty, of family photos and forced holidays, crumbling in seconds. He betrayed me, and they all watched the evidence bleed across their screens like truth finally unmuted. Jenna sobbed harder. I didn't know it would go this far. I tilted my head. You planned it on Dad's birthday, Jenna. That was never love. That was cruelty. My aunt stood up. You need to leave, she said, firm, cold. Both of you. Andrew's hand hovered over his wine, unsure of what to do with it now, like it might drown him if he drank, and maybe it would. I watched them get smaller as they left the room, Andrew pacing, Jenna shaking. But no one followed them, not even their so-called allies, because stories of betrayal don't age well when backed by data. People believed me, not because I cried louder, but because I had the files, the facts, and the grace not to scream. My mother squeezed my hand under the table. I'm sorry I didn't see it, she whispered. I smiled gently. You weren't supposed to. They hid it well, but I learned how to uncover what people think they've buried. That's what heartbreak teaches you. Not just how to heal, but how to see. Andrew's cousin approached me outside. We always thought he was lying. We just didn't want to get involved. I nodded. I know. That's how they survive. Silence. But my silence was my answer. For 2 long years. Tonight, it became the exclamation mark that shut down their entire charade. Jenna tried texting me that night. One line, I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have words, but because she didn't deserve any more of them. I was nothing to him, and to her, I was a placeholder. But now, I was the reason they'd never sit at a family table again without shame. The structure they built their comfort on, my patience, my presence, my politeness, it didn't hold anymore. And when I finally stood up to leave that dinner, I walked out with something they could never fake, my integrity intact. They wrote me out of their lives like I was disposable, so I rewrote mine, without them in a single line. The morning after the dinner, I stood by the window with a cup of coffee in my hands, my first in years that didn't taste bitter. There was no dramatic music, no screaming, no tears, just quiet, clean, final. I opened my laptop. attached the divorce documents I'd prepared weeks earlier with Callie, and sent them with a single line. "This is the last time you'll hear from me directly." She planned it all, including the ending. He tried calling. Once, twice, then he gave up. His silence was louder than anything he could have said. Jenna didn't reach out again. I think she understood. When she was captured by her own guilt, there'd be no one left to save her. They'd spent 2 years scripting a future together at my expense, but I'd torn up their script and handed them a reality check instead. Took the hard drive where I'd stored every piece of evidence and wiped it clean. Not because I was erasing history, but because I'd already won. So I showed him the proof, and now I didn't need to hold on to it. Sometimes victory looks like fire. Sometimes it looks like a clean slate. That day, it looked like a blinking cursor on an empty document. I moved into a new apartment 2 weeks later. Small, sunlit, and entirely mine. No shared passwords, no secret folders, no locked drawers, just peace. I painted one wall dark navy, put up shelves for my plants, and let the silence fill the space in a way that felt honest. I was nothing to him, but here, I was everything to myself. I changed my name back. It felt like reclaiming a birthright, something I never should have given up in the first place. At the DMV, the clerk asked, "Any reason for the change?" I smiled and said, "Correction." Because he thought I would stay attached, waiting, clinging to the version of me that made his life easier. He didn't expect I'd delete it. Completely, I booked a trip alone, not to escape, but to celebrate. 3 days in a cabin with just books, tea, and stillness. I read poetry out loud. I walked barefoot through grass. I let myself feel everything, then let it go. No more proving, no more chasing closure. The moment I signed that divorce paper, revenge turned into release. People kept asking, "What, now?" And I'd just smile, because now is whatever I want it to be. I'm no longer the woman who checked his calendar or filtered her voice to protect his image. I'm the woman who exposed betrayal with grace, walked through the fire without flinching, and came out on the other side without carrying ash. Callie called me one evening just to say, "You were the calmest storm I've ever seen." I laughed. That's because the explosion already happened, quietly, in my heart, long before anyone else noticed. That's what people forget. She cried in silence, but she rebuilt in silence too. And when I finally closed my laptop that night, there were no drafts left, no files open, just a single sticky note on my desk that read, "You rewrote everything."